guys, Mike here, Hampshire Outdoors and Survival. So Hampshire, that's where I live. Outdoors, that's where I love to be. Survival, because it's something I practice, something I try and learn. It's something I've racked people's brains for ever since I was a small boy. Camping, being outdoors, how do people survive? And as I got older and I learnt more and more and more, I started studying other people's stories, because again I come to realise that survival isn't just about that sharp knife you got, well, the tarpaulin that you carry, and the water kit you've got, and the gear you've got. It was also about your mindset, and mindset is essential in any survival situation. You know, as I've said before, yeah, some people in survival situations find God, that helps them through. Other people, it's thinking of their families and their determination to get back to them, and for some it's just pure bloody minded anger at the universe. You know, I'm not going to curl up and die. But again, that's will comes with mindset. But there is also a third item that comes into it, and it's one that's very often overlooked, and that's luck. You know, in a survival situation, when all hell's happening around you, luck is your first thing. Yeah, if you're lucky enough to survive the impact, then you know everything else from there on is down to what you know. I found myself on a boat one day, or one night actually, that sort of just stopped moving, and I noticed it stopped moving because I could see lights in the distance. I could see the lights had stopped moving, and I was on a lower deck, and I could hear the engine note changing, and I thought, that's not normal for where we are. And so I sat, and they put an announcement out that it's usual just before you leave the harbour announcement about where and what to do in an emergency, and the warning system that would be announced. And I thought, that's strange, don't normally play that here. So I thought, right, well, I'll have a look around me. And as I looked around me, I realised that the lights were shifting left to right and then right to left in the distance. So I thought, hang on, this vessel's stuck. So as it, I don't know, does it run aground? Does it hit something? It doesn't seem to be able to move forward, and they seem to be trying to manoeuvre it, and I could hear the engine note changing. So I had a look around where I was and thought, this is packed. There's very few ways out, and if people do panic in here, I'm going to be stuck in here with them. So first rule of survival is look to yourself. Look to those immediately around you. If you've got family and friends with you, get them out, and then go back and help anybody you can, but get your priorities right. So I had a look and I thought, well, it's probably nothing, but because I'm a survivor, let's start assessing my situation. So I went up one deck and found that that deck had easy access to the outside, and I had a quick bimble outside and found the lifeboats, set in my mind my route, where everything is. If this starts heeling over this vessel, do I go right, do I go left, do I go up, do I go down? What am I going to do? And I then went back and stood inside the door and had a look around that deck level that I was on and assessed the people there. And what I was assessing was, if they do decide they've got to abandon this vessel, who needs my help? Yeah, are there elderly people there? Are there people with small children there? Are there people with disabilities there? Right? The crew are going to be very well trained in getting people off, but I'm also pretty good as a medic and level-headed, so I wouldn't just want to jump off and save my hide. I feel pretty guilty if I survived and other people lost their lives. So I had a look to see if I can do anything, and luckily enough, nothing happened. It turned out that we had hit a sandbar, and it was low tide, and as the tide rose, it lifted the vessel off the sandbar, and we carried on straight to harbour, and 99.9% of the people, bar this one idiot, never even knew there was a problem. Okay, that's because it was a well-trained crew, knew exactly what they were doing, kept everything calm and sensible. But if it had gone wrong, hopefully I'd have been a survivor through my own mindset and skill set. So anyhow, Lady Luck, where does she come in? Well, I'll tell you a story, okay? This story, and you'll see me look into the screen because I've got it up here. It's a story I do know, but I want to make sure I get the facts right for you guys. So, the story is a young lady, Julianne Kopek, or Kopke. Oh, do excuse my speech impediment. Julianne Kopek was flying over the Peruvian rainforest with her mother when her plane was hit by lightning. She survived a 2-mile fall and found herself alone in the jungle, just 17, okay? And 40 years later, she recalls what happened. So this is in her own words. It was Christmas Eve of 1971 and everybody was eager to get home. We were angry because the plane was 7 hours late. Suddenly we entered a very large dark cloud and my mother was anxious, but I felt okay because I liked flying. After 10 minutes it was obvious that something was going very wrong. There was very heavy turbulence and the plane was jumping up and down. Parcels and luggage were falling from lockers. There were gifts and flowers and Christmas parcels and cakes all around the cabin. At this point we saw lightning around the plane and I was really terrified. My mother held my hands and we were unable to speak. Other passengers began to cry, weep and scream. After about 10 minutes I saw a very bright light on the outer engine on the left. My mother said very calmly, "This is the end. It's all over." Those were the last words I ever heard from her. That's rough. The plane jumped up and down and went into a nosedive. It was pitch black and people were screaming. Then a deep roaring of the engines filled my head completely. Suddenly the noise stopped and I was outside the plane. I was in free fall. I was strapped to my seat, my bench seat, and hanging head over heels. The whispering of the wind was the only noise I could hear, and I felt completely alone. I could see the canopy of the jungle spinning towards me. Then I lost consciousness and remembered nothing of the impact later. After this had all happened, I learned that the plane had broken into pieces about 2 miles above the ground. 2 miles back. So, I fall over 10,000 feet. I woke the next day and looked up into the canopy. My first thought was I'd survived this air crash. I shouted for my mother, but I only heard the sounds of the jungle, and I realised I was completely alone. I'd broken my collarbone. I had some deep cuts on my legs, but my injuries weren't serious. I realised later that I had a ruptured ligament in my knee, but I could walk. Before the crash, I'd spent a 1.5 years with my parents on their research station 30 miles from the location. I'd learned a lot about life in the rainforest, and it wasn't too dangerous. That it wasn't too dangerous. It's not the green hell that everybody thinks. I could hear planes overhead searching for the wreck, but it was a very dense forest and I couldn't see them. I was wearing a very short sleeveless mini dress and white sandals. I'd lost one shoe, but I kept the other because I'm very short-sighted. I had also lost my glasses, so I used the shoe to test the ground in front of me as I walked. Snakes are camouflaged here, and they look like dry leaves. I was lucky I didn't meet any of them, or maybe I just didn't see them. After a while I found a small creek, and I walked in the water because I knew it was safe, or it was safer. At the crash site, I found a bag of sweets. When I finished them, I had nothing more to eat, and I was very afraid of starving. It was very hot, very wet, and it rained several times a day, but it is cold in the night, and to be alone in that mini dress was very difficult. On the 4th day, I heard a noise. It was the landing of a king vulture, which I recognised from my time with my parents in the reserve. I was afraid because I knew they only land when there's a lot of carrion, and I knew then there would probably be bodies from the crash. When I turned a corner in the creek, I found a bench with 3 passengers rammed headfirst into the earth. I was paralysed by panic. It was the first time I'd ever seen a dead body. I thought my mother could be one of them when I touched the corpse. So then I touched the corpse with a stick and saw that the woman's toenails were painted, and my mother never painted or polished her nails. I was immediately relieved, but then afterwards I felt ashamed at that thought. By the 10th day, I couldn't stand properly, and I drifted along the edge of a large river that I had found. I felt so lonely. It was like I was in a parallel universe far away from any human being. I thought I was hallucinating when I saw a really large boat. When I went to touch it, I realised it was real, and that was like an adrenaline shot to me. But then I saw beyond the boat a small path into the jungle, where I found a hut with a palm leaf roof and an outboard motor and a litre of gasoline. I had a wound on my upper arm. By now this was infested with maggots, each one about a centimetre long. I remembered our dog, and that in the same infection my father would put kerosene on it, so I sucked the gasoline out and sprayed it into the wound. The pain was intense as the maggots tried to get further into the wound, but I pulled out about 30, and I was very proud of myself at this point, and I decided to spend the night here. The next day I heard the voices of several men outside. It was like hearing the voices of angels. When they saw me, they were alarmed and stopped talking. They thought I was some sort of water spirit, a figure from local legend, who is a hybrid of a dolphin and a blonde, white-skinned woman. I introduced myself in Spanish and explained what had happened. They treated my wounds, gave me something to eat, and the next day took me back to civilization. The day after my rescue I saw my father. He could barely talk, and in the first moment we just held one another. For the next few days he frantically searched for news of my mother, and on the 12th of January they finally found her body. Later I found out that she had also survived the crash, but was badly injured and couldn't move, and she died after a couple of days. I dread to think what her last days were like. This is from a woman in her own words. So, let's break this down. Luck. The luck to survive that fall on that seat. And she describes it as spinning. Now, I've thought long and hard about this, and I think it probably like a sycamore leaf propelled, which slowed her descent. It must have landed with her in a sitting position, and the legs collapsing underneath the seat probably saved her. Crashing through the canopy, that would have slowed her descent, and being sat on the seat would have given her some protection from the impact of branches and so on. So again, luck. But when she was on the ground, when she came round, one, she was level-headed. Two, when you look at the options, she's short-sighted, she's lost her glasses, she can't see, she's lost one shoe, she's assessed her own injuries. Well, she knew one thing that her father had told her, which was follow water if you're ever lost in the jungle. Okay, which she did. Well, that took her to the boat. So that was a skill set. That was a knowledge that she had that protected her. Knowing not to eat a lot of the plants there was something else that protected her. Okay. She survived on a bag of sweets that she rationed out. Again, a skill set, a mindset. Her determination. I don't know whether she chose God or whether she was just angry or what, but she knew she was going to get out of there. She kept moving. Okay. I can't imagine the horrors that a young 17-year-old girl who is knocked senseless would have to go through in that environment, but she made it out. So yeah, there we have it. That's her story. There's been movies written or made about it, and there's books out there, including her own book. Suggest you read it. And the injuries she sustained in that little report there, that's nothing. So she she fractured her collarbone, which hadn't penetrated the skin. The laceration in her upper arm was 6 inches long. Okay. It turned out she'd not just cut her or opened her shins with lacerations, but she'd actually broken one of her shins. She had a detached ACL, and she had spinal compression injuries. Okay, not counting all the other soft tissue injuries that she would have incurred in that event. And she got up, made it out. She also suffered with a concussion. Yeah, hellish. That's survival for you. So again, it's a lesson to be learned. Okay, it's that luck will pull you through, and also your knowledge. And as I'm always saying to people, knowledge takes nothing to carry, absolutely no weight to it at all. You know, you could say, oh, she'd had kit with her. Well, she's on a flight. Well, she's going to have kit with her. You know, that could be anybody on a flight. I don't think they let you take tarpaulins, knives, cook sets and that on a flight with you these days. So, again, she dealt with it as she needed to. But, yeah, 11 days. 11 days walking through a jungle. I can't imagine that. Can't imagine that. And the fear and the upset that would have come with it, knowing that, you know, other people had lost their lives. Anyhow, enough of that. There are many stories out there. What I'm hoping to do over the next few months is I will relate some of the stories that have inspired me over the years to you guys. And I use this story quite often when I'm talking or giving talks to people about survival. Because it's, to me, it's one of the most dramatic survival stories that's ever been heard. And if you're interested in people surviving falling from planes, have a look on the internet. Look it up on Wikipedia. There's many people who survived from amazing situations. There was a British bomber crew member who, complete with his tail turret, right, was blown free of his Lancaster, but I believe it was a Lancaster, I may be wrong, blown free of it, and crashed to earth in that and survived. There was a Russian pilot or crew member. Same thing. He was flown from his aircraft. He survived a fall of 10,700 feet and no parachute. Can't imagine what that would have felt like. Yeah, so many survival stories out there. Have a look at them. You know, we all know the story of the young man that cut his own arm off when he was trapped in the cave or trapped in the crevice. Okay. It's surprising what you can do, but luck does come into it. So I'll relate some of these other stories to you. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's not too much of a waffle. I'm going to get out this week, and as you see, I've injured my arm. You've got to watch them doorsteps when you come in tired. Got a nasty sprain, so we're going to go up the woods. You know, maybe we'll throw that into it. You know, can I do bushcrafting? Can I do my survival? Build a shelter? Yeah, in fact, that's an idea. Let's build a shelter. Let's get a fire going. Let's get ourselves sorted. Do a meal, and all the rest of it in the woods. With a knackered arm. Okay, so we'll adapt to that. I'll be honest about it, and I'll try and show you how I would deal with that situation. And that will be this week's main video. But now, this one is just my little short midweek video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you found it interesting. Hope it inspired you to think, maybe look into things, and yeah, do your research. Look at what other people have been through. It gives you confidence. Shows you can survive the most dire situations with a bit of luck. So anyhow, guys, as always, love those you do, forgive those you don't, and peace, love and light be on you all. I hope you're having a wonderful time wherever you are. Please like and subscribe, please share, please comment. This is Mickey. I'll catch you on the next one. Mickey out.